Yeah, well, again, we are joined by Austin from New Year's Day. He is the lead guitarist along with Nikki Misery and Frankie Sill. I know the band is a real tight unit. Besides Ash on lead vocals, tell us about the current lineup and why you feel this is the best lineup ever for New Year's Day.
Yeah, so we actually have, as you mentioned, we have Nikki and Frankie, but on drums, we actually have LP, Longinu Parsons, and he was from Yellow Card, and he was one of the founding members for Yellow Card, was in that band for like 17 years, so all the big songs like Ocean Avenue, of course, he, helped write and record that stuff, so he's kind of a legend in the pop punk world, so we're very lucky to have him, and he's just super fun to be around too. So between all those guys, it's definitely very talented and as you mentioned, a tight knit group for sure.
Yeah, well, I've always hit it off with Nicky on these festivals. You know, he's a real personable guy. He's
Yeah, for
always
sure.
high energy, and when it's time to rock, it doesn't matter if you've barely gotten any sleep or you've traveled all night or you're hungry or whatever. When it comes to that stage bell, you got to bring it and leave it all out on the stage. What have you seen in your fellow players like Ash and Nikki that makes you step your game up?
Just what you mentioned. Just they're so high energy, and you look over to the other side of the stage, and you see, Nikki's like smashing his guitar and like breaking all the strings off of it and stuff, and it's just like it amps you up for sure. And it's just the whole vibe with those guys. We have a great time, in the bus before shows and just hanging out with the other bands, and it's definitely like I said, we have a great time, and it all translates on stage.
Well, I know, after years on the Warp Tour and out there on these festivals, it's really a good opportunity for you to kind of take the pulse of, you can learn from all these other bands, when you're not performing, when you're not trying to get some rest or some food, you can check out all these other stage shows and really pick up some pointers.
Yeah.
And I've always said that it's really important for a player to kind of understand the theater of the mind. Sometimes you can be making some of these big kind of bold moves that look great, back in the crowd, but you're not necessarily wearing yourself out. You know what I mean?
Right.
It may look like you're up there in all leather, but people are in sneakers and, lightweight stuff where you can really pour into the show and still not, cut anything short because you're kind of wearing an anchor around your head or your shoes.
Right. Exactly. For sure.
We'll talk a little bit about that as far as what some of the pointers are, some of the best bands you've played with where you're kind of in awe, picking up some tips on what they're doing on stage and kind of adding them to your arsenal.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely have to start with Hailstorm because not only have those guys been so gracious to us from their crew to their band to everyone involved. That camp is just one of the best around for sure. And on stage, it's the same way. They bring it, and Lizzie just has this energy about her. She just has that monstrous voice, and then RJ, Joe, and Josh, they all bring it, and it's definitely like you said, it's influential, and you're definitely picking up some little mental pointers here and there, and same with Godsmack. Those guys are kind of legends as well, and just the way that they go about their business and the show is just they're both, all the bands we play with are all captivating bands, and the fans definitely pick up on that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I know a lot of the fans, kind of came up with some of the classic theatrical rock bands over the years. I don't care if it's Alice Cooper or Rob Zombie or Kiss or whoever. And from In This Moment and a lot of these bands you're talking about, they're bringing more of this theatricality,
Yeah.
back to their show. Really thinking it out with some stage props and all that. And obviously with your lead singer Ash Costello, with the striking look, with the colors in the hair, and her stage performance, and of course, like you say, your fellow guitarist Nikki. Why do you think it's important these days to really give the fans their money's worth and give them a show beyond just playing the music?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like how people used to always say, like, if I'm just gonna, I might as well just listen to the record if you don't have a show or whatever. And I do think there's some truth to that. It's like, if you're gonna go see a live show, you wanna be entertainers, and you wanna entertain the people that, like you mentioned, they did spend money to be there. And so we just try to give them everything we got all the way around, whether it's production, or how we're playing and performing. And it's got to be a full package for sure.
Well, I know you played some amazing festivals and venues around the world. Of course, touring with Hailstorm and Godsmack in this moment, shows with Falling in Reverse and POD. Talk about some of these, landmark festivals or venues. I know you played Download Australia and
Yeah.
Alexandra Palace in London. Talk about, some of your favorite, venues or crowds you performed in front of.
Yeah, that's a good question. They all eventually start to run together. It almost becomes a blur sometimes, but we definitely don't take it for granted. Definitely, some of the ones that stick out are the Louder Than Life festival. I think that one's like in Kentucky or something like that. But Def Leppard was headlining, and there was Ghost headlining on another stage, and it was just one of those. ZZ Top was playing, Stone Temple Pilots, and it was just one of those amazing nights for rock and roll. And that was definitely a night that I'll always remember. We had kind of a slightly earlier slot, so we got to kind of do our thing and then just go around and watch all these other bands. Another one is the Mohegan Sun Arena in Connecticut, and that was the last arena show of the tour with Godsmack. And that was just, there's a moment in the show where we have Ash will have the fans break out their lighters and their cell phones and turn the lights off, and it's just one of those, gives you chills or whatever. It's just that you see a whole arena lit up like that. And yeah, we've definitely played some amazing places like that.
Well, yeah, when you see those lighters out there, you feel one with the audience. They feel like they're part of the performance, part of the band. The band feels that they're with you. They're
Yes.
communicating. The whole venue is as one. What's the biggest crowd that you've played to?
Oh, let me think for a second. That's a good one. It might have to be one of the ones in the UK. I want to say like Nottingham uh, Arena or something like that with Hailstorm this past November. Wow, that's crazy. That was almost a year ago now. But yeah, it was either that one or the one in Amsterdam that we did at SSE Hydro. Those were both really, really big places.
Yeah, well, I know, to a lot of bands, especially coming up, you're playing clubs, the audience right in your face, and then the bigger the venue, the further you are, there's the security and the photo pit and the
Yeah.
barrier. And, a lot of these big festivals, the front row is a good 30, 40 feet away.
Yep.
How do you keep that, audience communication in a way? I know you can't necessarily look into the eyes of the people with a big crowd like that, but how do you try to personally, besides putting on a great show, kind of connect with the audience that's not necessarily right in your face?
Yeah. It is true for sure. It's a different vibe. You kind of, in the really big shows like that, you kind of feel like you're in your own little world up there sometimes. Like you said, there's all these security and barriers. And but the the first couple rows are kind of who you're looking at. And they're usually people that are far up front like that. They're usually full of energy and stuff too, so they kind of pump us up. But aside from that, whether we're playing a club or an arena or whatever, we're just trying to do our thing and bring the same show and the same energy, no matter who we're playing for.
Yeah, well, I know, with Musicians Institute, it's a real high level of, learning your instrument. And of course they have the business classes and all that. And then there's a lot of the musicians that are, our heroes and icons that never went to school. They don't even know how to read music. It's all, by feel for them. How do you find that balance yourself by, really studying your craft, studying your musicianship, but also kind of taking a piece of those icons that literally did it from the heart?
Yeah, I've always been a feel player. I definitely think that your ear and the feeling has to come first. And it was cool to learn what I learned at MI, and I definitely took kind of bits and pieces of what I thought that I could definitely benefit from or use. But of course, everything that I learned there, um, it's like, the saying, if you don't use it, you lose it kind of thing. And, there's some jazz stuff and all this that we learned that, maybe I didn't completely retain because, it's just not necessarily my style or what's in me as a player. But, um, like it is kind of walking that fine line of, the things that you did study that you want to kind of keep with you and take. And, um, but at the end of the day, it is all about your ear and all about the feeling that has to come first.
Yeah, I'm hearing Dave Grohl and the Foo Fighters, laugh with each other like none of them know how to read music, but they're the biggest, arena and stadium act, out there. It's that, AC/DC kind of punk rock, attitude, Van Halen, of
Yeah,
just really by the balls.
for
Now I
sure.
know Unbreakable is a really bold step for the band in the singles, Skeletons, Shut Up, Come For Me,
Hmm.
all of that is really taking the band to a whole nother level. What do you feel you've most accomplished with that album, and what do you feel is the attitude going in to the next record?
Yeah, I definitely think that Unbreakable was, to me, it almost kind of feels like the beginning of New Year's Day, which, and even Ash will kind of say that. I mean, obviously for me, it was the beginning because that was, the first album that was out when I joined the band. But, um, it just took on a whole new direction. I think it was a more mature record. It kind of fused the whole metal with the pop kind of thing, and our fans really gravitated towards that. And it'll be interesting to see what we do. We've been throwing some riffs and stuff around over the break, so it'll be interesting to see what direction we kind of want to go in moving forward. But I think it'll always have a heaviness to it, and there'll always be melody to it. I can say that for sure. Ash is really big on, no matter how heavy the riff gets, there's always got to be, a melody going over top of it.
Yeah, well, especially when you're looking at these big festivals and the arena crowds, it's really those big choruses, the
Yep.
big call and response. When we're talking about AC/DC or Van Halen or Aerosmith or whoever, the greats over the years, it's those big chords, the big hooks that really do it. And when you break it down, it is very much, a melody that could be taken in a pop vein. You could take in a country direction, you could add some metal guitars to it and crunch it up, but at the core of it, it's a super catchy sing along, type song.
For
Why
sure.
do you feel those go over so well in the big venues?
Yeah, I think that when you're playing those big venues and the sounds coming out of those massive PAs, it's like the really fast, crazy stuff doesn't always translate as good as just the, like you said, AC/DC, the big four on the floor kind of beats with the huge guitar riffs. And then the more kind of crowd participation you can have, um, the more simple the songs are. If people can shout along to it, if they can sing along, I definitely think that's a big thing as well.
Well, we've certainly seen that with Hailstorm. Lizzie Hale gets that crowd going, gets the fist pumping. They're singing along, and
Yeah.
like I say, it's amazing to see what she's done and really champion the cause for female singers out there. I know she took Lita Ford out on the road with her, who was one of her heroes coming up, with the Runaways and Joan
Yeah.
Jett and all that. And you know, um, what do you feel that opportunity is for that female empowerment? These days in the creative world.
Yeah, I mean, like we were talking about before, I just think that there's so much opportunity for it right now, and now's the time. I've been seeing Hailstorm's been doing a lot over the break. They've put out their new reimagined EP, and Lizzie and Amy Lee from Evanescence did something together, and the female empowerment stuff is going strong for sure. Like I said, with the Hailstorm in this moment tours selling out, places, and the fans really, you would see all age ranges there, and I think it's very well accepted.
Yeah, it's across the board. There's more female hip hop stars than ever, and of course, so many female pop stars.
Yeah,
Becoming dominant. In the industry, it's seems like a nice balance.
for
Um,
sure.
let's talk about Diesel Fuel and recording this instrumental album, and
Yeah.
what was the influence or inspiration to doing that?
Well, yeah, I just had all these kind of, crazy ideas flowing through my head for the longest time. And it was just kind of a fun project that I just really wanted to get out there. Myself and my drummer, James, we would kind of, get into my computer. I have Logic on my computer, and we'll get in there and start demoing songs. And we just put a bunch of songs together, and um, we're kind of deciding to release one at a time. So we're going to do one per month over probably like the next 9 or 10 months, something like that. And it was just a really super fun thing for us to do and kind of push ourselves as artists to. I mean, this is some of the craziest guitar playing I've ever written and recorded, and I know he says the same about the drums. So just something fun for us to listen back to and kind of laugh at ourselves and say, yeah, I guess we did that or whatever. Um, so yeah, it was just something that creatively kind of satisfied that itch, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's always needed, and from Joe Satriani to Steve Vai, there's been so many incredible, rock instrumentalists. They can always play in a band situation, but there's something about an instrumental that doesn't really hold you back. You don't have to wait for that verse, chorus,
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
thing. Were any of those guys inspiring to you, Satriani or Vai or any of those?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember I saw Steve Vai. I want to say it was around 2013 or 14 down here. I think he was playing in Mobile, Alabama. But I was in the front row, and it was just a super just captivating show. Just the command that he has over the guitar and the crowd. I kind of thought it might be a show where it's, oh yeah, it's a virtuoso kind of guitar player kind of guy. He might just be more focused on the guitar or whatever. But man, he put on a show. I mean, for sure. He was every song he'd be changing outfits, and he had this like crazy, like almost like robot laser guitar kind of thing. And it was definitely entertaining, and the whole time he's just completely shredding. And it was yeah, so Steve Vai, Satriani, they both have a huge influence.
Yeah, I always run into Steve, down at the NAM show. It's always great to see. As big as he gets, he's still down to earth.
Yeah,
Got a very professional attitude. It's I always say the success shouldn't change you. Just because what you did connected with a lot of people shouldn't take your feet off the ground.
exactly. Yeah.
Now I know you've used a number of studios, and you're working with the wizard, Chris
Yes.
Collier. Of course, worked with Korn and George Lynch and Fear Factory and everything. But one of the studios that stands out to us, it's right down the block from where we are right now here in North Hollywood, and that's the Steakhouse.
Yeah.
Steakhouse Studios. Of course, everybody from Eddie Van Halen has been in there, and of course Steve Lukather's from Toto is one of the partners who's probably played on more hit records than anybody. But
Yeah.
from Ron Wood from the Stones, and Rick Rubin and Kenny Loggins, and of course Steve Vai, everybody, Smokey Robinson and Travis Barker, Weezer, Ziggy Marley. How did you guys end up at the Steakhouse? Was that one of Chris's choices?
Yes, that was one of Chris's choices, and we're so fortunate and grateful to have Chris. He actually played bass on all the instrumentals as well that we did. And yeah, he was like I said, he does all the Lynch Mob stuff. So Lynch Mob would record there a lot. So when we needed to record drums for Diesel Fuel, and he was like, yeah, let's go to Steakhouse. So we get there, and they have this super old Neve console, which for the audio nerds out there was not a lot of Neve consoles ever made, and they're all hand wired, and they just have this super just warm analog sound, and there's just nothing like it. We heard the drums coming through there, and you can just hear it in the sound, just the warmth of the drums and everything. And it was definitely a pleasure getting to track there and knowing that all those people, came before us and tracked there and everything too. And so, yeah. And it was funny. It was like, right in the middle of North Hollywood, but you would never guess that it's a studio. You feel like you're just like pulling up to this like random building in a neighborhood, and then it's this crazy place, so yeah, it was definitely really cool to be able to track there.
Yeah, we'll be based right here in North Hollywood, Burbank, Studio City. I always tell people if there's not a sign on the building, there's a good chance it's probably a studio,
Exactly. Yeah.
because they never have a sign out front. But, it's a nondescript building, and you go through the door, and now there's, $1 million worth of gear and, millions of stories in history,
Yep.
about the place, and, always incredible. And,
For sure.
it's, like I say, that warm analog sound is so important. Those are the records we listened to, back in the 70s, and
Yep.
all that. And digital is great to be able to write this stuff and work on your laptop and Pro Tools and all that. But
Yeah.
like you say, so many of the artists that grew up with those great records, really fight hard to get that warm sound. Why do you think that analog sound is still in so many ways superior? And I know a lot of people find the digital way to try and reproduce it.
Yeah. I mean, the technology with the digital stuff has gotten really, really, really good. I will say that. And, but for this instrumental project, it was just something that we were really adamant about. We wanted to do live drums, and there's just something about, the way when you hit a drum and you have a really good drummer, and the finesse and all the cymbals, and there's just something about it that to me comes through in the music, and you can tell whether it's live or programmed. But like you said, with the analog stuff, I mean, Steakhouse with going through that board, that's as good as it gets right there. And it's just whether you can, subconsciously kind of recognize it, or right off the bat that, oh yeah, that was definitely analog there. Either way, it's just there's just something. It's a feeling thing, it just feels good when you listen to it. And I think there's just something to that.
Yeah, again, growing up, hearing Jimi Hendrix or Jimmy Page or whatever, initially digital had that brittle sound. It
Right.
didn't have that depth.
Yep.
The warmth to it. And I know, like you say, all these tech companies are in their labs trying to find out how can we bring or reproduce those sounds, in a digital plug-in or an app or something that's easier to move. Because like you say, that Neve or SSL board, might be $500,000. The average person can only dream about using something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Now, talk about the rest of the album. What we can expect on, the future songs after Diesel Fuel, kind of the overall goal, that you have once people have heard all the songs.
Yeah, so I mean, the whole album kind of takes you, takes you on a journey through all these different styles that we're really influenced by. I'm super into bands like Boston and Kansas, and like all the old 70s, 80s stuff like that. Kind of more of the, it's almost like traveling music. That's kind of the way I hear that stuff. And um, I kind of try to blend. You kind of will start to hear with the different songs that you'll get some more of the kind of Boston-y kind of vibes here and there, kind of blended with more of the hard rock metal stuff. And I think that's kind of the common theme with the whole album, is that there's not really a common theme. It's kind of like you'll get songs that are more, a little bit more laid back. I grew up on the beach and stuff like that. So there's those influences kind of coming out. You'll get some of those, and you'll get some that are more like Diesel Fuel. It's just, metal and hard rock. I'm really influenced by, like Sinister Gates and Avenged Sevenfold, bands like that. So it's kind of just, if I had to sum it up, I would say it's just a blend of a lot of things that we like. And one song is not like the other.
We'll mention Avenged Sevenfold, who certainly came up through the Warped Tour. New Year's Day was in there, plugging away, watching bands like that, take off. Who are some of the other contemporary bands or players that you look up to and respect, what they're doing?
Mm, yeah, that's a good question because a lot of my influences definitely come from, the classic stuff like the Eddie Van Halens, the Randy Rhoads, the Stevie Ray Vaughns, Tom Schultz, Slash, all those guys. I was drawn to Avenged Sevenfold because they had that kind of like classic feel, to their sound, and Sinister Gates, the way he plays guitar, he kind of fuses, kind of what I'm talking about with classic rock, but kind of brings it into metal and kind of combines different styles. And I think that's one thing that just drew me to them. But it's hard to think. I mean, there's a lot of good bands out right now, but anyone that's just cutting edge and is just doing their thing and being creative, I'm drawn to any band, that's doing that.
Yeah, well, I know in this downtime, it's a good time to write and stack up, ideas and all that. But how do you kind of keep in physical condition? Because obviously, when this touring is going to start, New Year's Day is going to want to go nonstop.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually, I'm really big into all the health and fitness stuff. And I started doing like the home workouts, like P90X and stuff like that, like several years ago, probably like, 4 years ago, I started trying to get like 5 or 6 days a week and just work out every day. So it kind of became a part of my normal life. And now it doesn't feel any different. It's kind of just like, for me, it's almost easier because I have a full, dumbbell set here and pull up bars. And so it's kind of just part of my day. I just wake up and work out. And so, the staying in shape kind of just happens naturally, I guess. And when we're out on the road, me, Frankie, Nikki, we're all working out too. So New Year's Day is definitely real big on that.
Well, I know being from Florida, obviously that Southeast was highly influential as the 60s turned into the 70s, with the Allman Brothers and
Oh yeah,
Leonard Skinner and the Outlaws and Marshall Tucker Band and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
all that Southern rock that
Absolutely.
still still seems like it's permeating, the rock scene,
Yep.
Blackberry Smoke and
The
Black
swamp.
Cherry,
Yeah, the swamp rock, as
these
I call it.
yeah, these guys are still living that, and I know one of Greg Allman's offspring is out there touring with one of Dickie Betts' sons, the Allman Betts band, and
Yeah.
keeping that going in. And of course, they spurred the jam band world, and all of that. But what do you see as the the main thing that that those Southern rock bands should be remembered for?
I do think that you can hear just the grit, of the South, just that sound. You can just hear it in the sound, and it's a little bit of country, it's a little bit of rock, it's their childhood and the way they grew up, and and it's just even the lyrics and stuff with all the Skinnerd stuff. They're all stories, and I'm a big Tom Petty fan and stuff too, and um, the lyrics in all of Tom Petty songs are just great. He paints a picture for you, and you can just tell that they're from the South. It's not overly complicated. It's got this kind of drawl, this laid back, but it's got that attitude toward. It's hard to explain, but you can definitely hear it in there for sure.
Well, it's hard to believe that the Ronnie Van Zants and Tom Petty's and Greg Allman's are gone, but I know it's up to guys like you and bands like New Year's Day to keep the fire going. There's some
Yep.
people that talk about how rock is diminished or rock is dead or this and that, which is it's so easy with digital recording for anybody to be a rapper, anybody to be a singer and all that. Why do you think it's so important to keep rock alive?
Just because there's never going to be just the way, pressing a button on an iPad or a laptop, it's just never going to be the same as learning how to play an instrument, and the feeling that you get when you're in a room jamming with different musicians that are on the same page as you. And that's just something that comes across to people listening, and it's just there's a certain energy to it, certain vibe that just comes across in the music. And I don't think it, I definitely don't buy into the rock is dead kind of thing, because I'm out there seeing it firsthand. I'm seeing these arenas sold out, these big festivals that we're playing with, you got Def Leppard and bands like that still around, just killing it. And rock's not going anywhere for sure, and it's alive now more than ever. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, well, it'd be great to see, more and more of the young, generations discovering the greats, and then being able to go out and see bands like you and Avenged Sevenfold and all these great,
Yeah,
contemporary bands, ripping up the arenas and the festival stages and all that. Well, I
yeah,
know as you guys get back and record the follow up to Unbreakable, there's, New Year's Day to be looking forward to, and I know you're looking forward to getting back out on those stages and spreading the word, city to city, country to country. What
absolutely.
advice do you give to young creatives today? Because again, there's that mentality where a lot of the youngsters think there's an app for everything, or a shortcut, or there's a YouTube, or
Right.
something where they don't have to put in the work. What do you tell them as far as the kind of commitment it takes to really do what you're aiming to do?
Yeah, it's definitely, putting in the work, practicing your craft, and just, being a cool person, getting out there, talking to people, network. Because that's another big thing too. You could be the best guitar player, singer, drummer, whatever, in the world, but if you don't get out there and meet people, no one's going to know about it. So, that's a big thing right there. And just, never, of course, it's so cliche, but just, never give up. And no matter how many times you hear no, that should just fire you up even more to just keep going. And eventually, you're going to kick down those doors.
Well, we can't wait for more New Year's Day and more the follow up to Diesel Fuel. Austin, what's the best website or social media people can follow what you're doing instrumentally and your business that you do?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram most of the time. As far as my social media, it's just at Austin Ingerman, AustinIngerman, and then Facebook, it's the same thing. Facebook.com/Austin Ingerman. So I got Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can also go to my website at austiningerman.com, and yeah, just be on the lookout for all the new stuff. Like I said, there'll be like a new song and a video pretty much every month at this point. That's what we're aiming for. So and then at the end, we're going to kind of package them all together and do some physical copies as well. So
Yeah, that physical is important. People thought records were dead and now vinyl's back, but it's a specialty item. You got to pay 5, 10 times the amount. Let's not let these, CDs and vinyl and all that go away, because, it's a classic form,
yeah,
and generations to come, can enjoy it. I always say, just because you have options, you don't need to get rid of others.
yeah, and I just
Give the
love the
people what they want, how they want it.
exactly, and I just love the look of vinyls and seeing the artwork on there, and just hanging out and putting on a record on a vinyl player. There's nothing like that.
Yeah, dropping a needle, hearing a little crackle pop, maybe right
Yeah,
before the guitars and drums come screaming in.
yeah,
You
exactly.
know,
It's all part
it's
of it
yeah. We couldn't wait when we got that new Zeppelin or AC/DC or Van Halen album, just to put that needle drop and just kick back and just be in awe of the artistry of it all.
for sure. Yeah,
Well, Austin Ingerman's been our guest. New Year's Day is the band. Of course, he's got his solo instrumental with his folks, including Chris Collier and the great drummer. We can't wait to hear more. It's been a real pleasure. We look forward to spreading the word on all that you're doing. And shout out to Sean and everybody on your team, man. It looks like you're going to be rocking forever.
absolutely. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate that.